The frost bit deep into Sera's bare feet as she stumbled through the thornwood, her thin dress offering no protection against the winter night. Blood from a dozen cuts painted dark trails down her legs where the cursed briars had torn her skin, marking her flight with a crimson path any tracker could follow. Not that anyone would bother tracking her. Exiles weren't worth the effort. Behind her, distant and fading, the howls of her former pack celebrated her banishment. The sound cut deeper than any thorn ever could. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. 3 days. They'd given her 3 days to prove her wolf could surface, to show she was worthy of the Silvermoon Pack's bloodline. 3 days of rituals and forced shifts under the Elder's watchful eyes. 3 days of failure and humiliation as her wolf remained locked away, silent and unreachable as it had been since birth. Defective, the Alpha had declared, his voice carrying across the pack grounds as every wolf she'd ever known watched her shame. The bloodline cannot be diluted by those who cannot shift. Sera Silvermoon, you are cast out. Your name is revoked. Your pack bonds are severed. May the goddess have mercy, for we will not. The memory made her stumble, catching herself against a massive oak tree. Her mother hadn't even fought for her, had simply turned away, choosing the pack over her own daughter. Her father had been dead 2 winters now, killed in a border skirmish. He would have fought. He would have raged against the injustice of it all. But he was gone, and Sera was alone. The thornwood grew denser as she pushed deeper into territory no wolf claimed. This forest was old, ancient in ways that made her skin prickle with awareness of something watching from the shadows. The trees here didn't follow natural patterns, their branches twisted into shapes that seemed almost deliberate, almost purposeful. Stories, she reminded herself through chattering teeth. Just stories the elders told to keep cubs from wandering. But the cold was real. The exhaustion was real. And the knowledge that she wouldn't survive another night without shelter was terrifyingly, desperately real. Her legs gave out finally, sending her crashing to her knees in a small clearing where moonlight pooled like liquid silver. The full moon hung above her, impossibly large, impossibly bright. Its light seemed to pierce straight through her skin to the empty space where her wolf should be. 22 years she'd lived with that emptiness. 22 years of watching other children shift for the first time, of feeling the pack bonds that connected everyone except her, of being the Alpha's daughter who couldn't even produce claws. Sera's hand went to the leather cord around her neck, the only thing she'd been allowed to keep. Hanging from it was a small moonstone, the last gift from her father. "Your wolf is in there, little star," he used to tell her. "She's just waiting for the right moment to emerge." He'd been wrong. There was no wolf. There was just Sera, broken and incomplete, bleeding out in a cursed forest with nowhere left to run. The tears came then, hot against her frozen cheeks. Great, heaving sobs that tore from her chest as everything she'd been holding back for 3 days finally broke free. She curled into herself on the frost-covered ground, her body shaking with cold and grief, and a loneliness so profound it felt like drowning. "Please," she whispered to the moon, her voice raw and broken. "Please, if you're real, if you're listening, I can't do this alone. I can't." The moon goddess was supposed to watch over all wolves, even the defective ones, even the exiles. That's what the story said. But Sera had never felt divine presence, never felt anything but the hollow ache of incompleteness. "I know I'm not worthy," she continued, her words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "I know I'm broken, defective, wrong, but I'm trying. I've always tried, and I just want to belong somewhere, to someone. Please." Her fingers clutched the moonstone until the edges bit into her palm. "I don't want to die alone in these woods. I don't want my last thought to be that I was never enough. Please, goddess, if you're there, if you care about the broken ones, send me something, someone, a sign that I'm not just a mistake." The wind picked up, carrying with it a scent that made every hair on her body stand on end. Pine and midnight rain, smoke and something wild, something powerful that called to the empty space inside her like a key seeking its lock. Sera's head snapped up, her sobs cutting off as instinct older than thought screamed at her to run, to hide, to make herself small and invisible. A predator was coming. something ancient and dangerous that made the very air around her feel heavy with power. But she couldn't run. Her legs wouldn't hold her, and some part of her, some deep and desperate part, wanted to see what the darkness would bring. If death was coming for her, at least it would be swift. At least she wouldn't freeze alone. The massive black wolf emerged from the tree line like a shadow given form. It was enormous, larger than any wolf she'd ever seen, with fur so dark it seemed to absorb the moonlight itself. Silver marked its coat in intricate patterns that almost looked like ancient runes, and its eyes goddess. Its eyes burned with molten gold that held intelligence and power beyond anything mortal. Sera's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just a wolf. This was something far more dangerous, far more powerful. An alpha. And not just any alpha. The wolf's gaze locked onto hers, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. The scent hit her again, stronger now, wrapping around her like a physical touch. Her body responded in ways she didn't understand, heat flooding through her despite the cold, her heart racing not with fear but with something else, something that made the emptiness inside her ache with sudden, desperate longing. Mine, something whispered in the depths of her soul. Finally, mine. But that was impossible. She didn't have a wolf. She couldn't feel mate bonds. She was defective, broken, wrong. The wolf stepped closer, and Sera found she couldn't look away from those golden eyes. They held something she recognized, something that made her chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't name. Pain, loneliness, a searching that mirrored her own desperate need to belong. "I'm sorry," she whispered, not sure why she was apologizing to this magnificent creature. "I know I can't be." The wolf's ears flicked forward, and it moved closer still, until she could feel the heat radiating from its massive form. Slowly, carefully, it lowered its great head and pressed its muzzle against her palm. The contact sent lightning through her entire body. Gold light exploded behind her eyes, and suddenly she could feel it, the bond she'd been told she'd never have, snapping into place like the final piece of a puzzle she hadn't known she was solving. Her wolf, silent and dormant for 22 years, stirred. "Mate," the presence whispered, weak, but undeniably there. "Our mate." Sera gasped, her free hand flying to her chest as sensation flooded through her. The pack bonds she'd never felt, the connection she'd always been denied, it was happening now, with this stranger, this powerful alpha, whose scent was driving her mad with need and recognition. You're real," she breathed, staring at the wolf with wonder. "The mate bond. I can feel it. I can feel my wolf." The golden eyes seemed to glow brighter, and the wolf made a sound deep in its chest, not a growl, but something closer to a purr of satisfaction and relief. Then, before her eyes, the wolf began to shift. Bones restructured, fur retreated, and in a matter of heartbeats, a man knelt before her in the moonlight, the most devastatingly beautiful man she'd ever seen. He was tall, even kneeling, with midnight black hair that fell past his broad shoulders, sharp features that looked carved from stone, and those same golden eyes that now studied her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Intricate tattoos covered his bare chest and arms, the same silver patterns that had marked his wolf form, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Power radiated from him in waves that made her instinctively want to bare her throat in submission. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. This was an alpha of alphas, ancient bloodline, royal authority. Everything about him screamed danger and dominance, and he was looking at her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd ever spoken. "I heard you," he said, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate through her bones. "Your prayer to the moon. I was miles away, in my territory, and I heard you calling." His hand came up, hesitating just before, touching her face. "May I?" Sera nodded, not trusting her voice. His fingers were gentle as they cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing away the tears that still clung to her lashes. "You asked the goddess to send you someone." He continued softly. "She sent me. Your mate. The one I've been searching for across 3 kingdoms for the past 5 years." That's impossible," Sera managed, though her body was already leaning into his touch, craving more contact. "I'm nobody. I can't even shift properly. I'm defective." His expression darkened. something fierce and protective flashing through those golden eyes. "Who told you that?" "Everyone," she whispered. "My pack. They exiled me 3 days ago because my wolf won't surface. I've tried everything, but I'm broken." "I can't—" "You're not broken," he interrupted, his voice carrying command that made her words die in her throat. "Your wolf is right here. I can feel her now that our bond has awakened. She's been dormant, waiting. Waiting for what?" His smile was gentle, transforming his dangerous features into something breathtaking. "For me, for us. Some wolves need their mate to fully emerge. It's rare, but not unheard of, especially in those with powerful bloodlines." Sera wanted to believe him. Goddess, she wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. But 22 years of being told she was defective, 3 days of humiliation and exile, it all crashed over her in a wave of doubt. "You don't know me," she said, pulling back slightly. "You don't know what I am. What if the bond is wrong? What if I'm not really your mate, just some mistake, some cruel trick?" Pain flickered across his features. "Do you feel it?" he asked quietly. "The pull? The recognition? The way your body knows mine even though we've never met?" She did. Goddess help her. She felt all of it. The bond hummed between them like a living thing, warm and right and undeniable. "I feel it," she admitted. "But that doesn't mean my name is Kale Nightborn," he said, his voice formal now, official. "Alpha King of the Northern Territories. I rule over 7 packs and command the largest army in the realm. I have wealth, power, and influence that spans generations." He leaned closer, his golden eyes boring into hers. "And none of it means anything compared to finding you. You, Sera, are worth more than all of it combined." Her breath caught. "How do you know my name?" "I heard everything," he said simply. "Your prayer, your pain, your name on the wind. The mate bond was already forming even before I reached you. It called me here with an urgency I've never felt before." His hands moved to her shoulders, and she realized she was still shaking with cold. Without a word, power rippled through the air, and suddenly she was wrapped in his discarded shirt, still warm with his body heat and saturated with his scent. "You're freezing," he said, concern evident in his voice. "And injured. Your feet. It's nothing," she tried to say, but he was already examining the cuts from the thorns, his expression growing darker with each wound he discovered. "Nothing?" His voice had gone dangerous. "You're bleeding in a dozen places. Your lips are blue with cold. You've been exiled and left to die in the thornwood." He looked up at her, and she saw rage simmering beneath his controlled exterior. "Which pack did this to you?" "It doesn't matter. It matters to me," he growled. "You're my mate, my queen. Anyone who hurt you has answered to me." "Queen." The word hung between them, impossible and terrifying and somehow thrilling all at once. "I'm not a queen," Sera said weakly. "I'm an exile. A defective Omega who can't even—" "You are my mate," Kale interrupted firmly. "That makes you Queen of the Northern Territories, Luna to 7 packs, and the most important person in my entire kingdom. And anyone," his voice dropped to something deadly, "who dares call you defective again will learn exactly what happens when you insult my mate." The possessiveness in his tone should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel safe for the first time in 3 days. Protected, valued, wanted. "Silvermoon Pack," she heard herself say. "They exiled me." Kale went very still. "Silvermoon? Alpha Garrett's pack?" She nodded, surprised he knew the name. Her pack was large, but not particularly powerful or influential. Just another territory pack trying to survive in the shadow of greater forces. "I know him," Kale said quietly. "We've had dealings before. He's always presented himself as honorable, just. This," he gestured to her injuries, her condition, "this is neither." "It's pack law," Sera said, though even as she spoke the words, they tasted bitter. "Those who can't shift by their 22nd year are considered defective." "Yes, you've said that word enough times," Kale cut her off. "And it's wrong. Ancient, outdated, and cruel. My territory abandoned such laws decades ago." His jaw clenched. "But Silvermoon is not under my direct rule. Alpha Garrett maintains his own territory, his own laws." "Then there's nothing you can do," Sera said, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. And honestly, I don't want to go back there. They made it clear I don't belong. You don't belong there, Kale agreed, his hands still gently examining her injuries. You belong with me. In my territory. In my home. He looked up at her, golden eyes intense. If you'll have me. Choice. He was offering her choice, just like she'd always wanted. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her own pack had cast her out without a thought, but this powerful alpha king was asking her permission. I don't understand, she admitted. You're a king. You could have anyone. Why would you want? You, he finished. I want you, Sera. Not because of what you can or can't do. Not because of bloodlines or power or politics. But because you're mine, and I'm yours. Because the goddess herself answered your prayer by sending me to you. Because every instinct I have is screaming that you're the other half of my soul. He moved closer, until his forehead rested gently against hers. I've been alone for so long, searching, hoping, praying to the same goddess you called to tonight, and she led me here, to you, broken and bleeding in the thornwood but still fighting, still trying, still hoping. Tears spilled down Sera's cheeks again, but these were different from before. Not grief, but something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. What if I can't shift? She whispered. What if my wolf never fully emerges? What if I disappoint you? Kale pulled back, just enough to look into her eyes. Then we'll face that together. But I don't think that's what will happen. I can feel your wolf, Sera. She's there, stronger than you know. She's been protecting herself, waiting until it was safe to emerge fully. His hand found hers, threading their fingers. Together. Mate bonds don't lie. The goddess doesn't make mistakes. You are exactly who you're supposed to be, exactly who I need. And I swear to you, on my honor as Alpha King, I will spend every day proving that you are more than enough. The sincerity in his voice, the absolute conviction, it broke through the last of her defenses. She believed him. Against all logic, despite all her doubts, she believed him. Okay, she breathed. Okay? Yes. I'll come with you. I'll try. The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise after the longest night. Thank you, he said simply. Then, with careful gentleness, he scooped her into his arms as though she weighed nothing. Sera gasped, instinctively clutching at his shoulders. What are you doing? Taking you home, he said simply. You can barely walk, and it's hours to my territory. I'll carry you. But you can't carry me for hours, he laughed, a rich sound that rumbled through his chest. Little mate, I'm an Alpha King. I could carry you for days if needed. Besides, his voice softened, I've been waiting 5 years to find you. Do you really think I'm letting you out of my arms now? Heat flooded through her at the endearment, at the possessive affection in his tone. Little mate. As if she belonged to him, as if he belonged to her. As if they were already everything the mate bond promised. As Kale began walking, moving through the thornwood with confidence that suggested he knew these paths well, Sera allowed herself to relax against his chest. His warmth seeped into her frozen body, his scent wrapped around her like a blanket, and his heartbeat beneath her ear became a steady rhythm that soothed something deep inside her. Can I ask you something? She said after a few minutes of comfortable silence. Anything. Why were you in the thornwood tonight? It's forbidden territory. Everyone knows that. Kale's expression turned thoughtful. It's only forbidden to those who don't understand its magic. The thornwood is ancient, protected by the goddess herself. It allows passage to those it deems worthy and bars those who would bring harm. He looked down at her. I come here often when I need to think, to escape the demands of kingship for a while. And tonight? Tonight I felt a pull, he admitted. Something calling to me from deeper in the forest. I followed it without question. His golden eyes met hers. It led me to you. Sera's fingers unconsciously tightened on his shoulder. That's impossible. The thornwood serves the goddess, Kale interrupted gently. And the goddess answers prayers, Sera, yours and mine both. They fell into silence again as he carried her through the night-dark forest. But this silence felt different from the terrible loneliness she'd known in the clearing. This silence was full of possibility, of connection, of the beginning of something she'd never dared dream could be hers. Above them, the full moon continued its journey across the sky, its light painting silver paths through the trees. And Sera, cradled safely in the arms of the mate she'd prayed for, felt her wolf stir again. Stronger this time. More present. Safe. The voice whispered in her mind. Finally safe. Home. Dawn was breaking over the mountains when Cale finally stopped walking. Sera had dozed fitfully against his chest, exhaustion and the rhythmic comfort of his heartbeat, lulling her into brief moments of rest. But now, as golden light spilled across the horizon, she lifted her head to see where he'd brought her. Her breath caught. Before them stood a castle that seemed to grow from the mountain itself. Stone towers reached toward the sky, their surfaces carved with the same ancient symbols that marked Cale's skin. Massive gates of dark wood bound with silver stood open, revealing courtyards beyond where wolves in both human and shifted forms moved with purposeful grace. This wasn't just a house. This was a kingdom. "Welcome home," Cale said softly, watching her reaction with those penetrating golden eyes. Home. The word should have felt foreign, presumptuous. Instead, something in her chest eased at the sound of it. As they approached the gates, guards snapped to attention. Their eyes widened in shock at the sight of their king carrying a bedraggled, bleeding stranger, but not one of them questioned him. They simply bowed, radiating curiosity and confusion through the air. "Send for healer Mira," Cale commanded as they passed through. "Have her meet us in my chambers immediately, and tell the council I'll address them after the new queen has been tended to." New queen. The word sent a ripple of shock through the assembled wolves. Sera felt their stares like physical touches, their judgment, their curiosity, their disbelief that this broken, dirt-covered exile could be their king's mate. Their right to doubt, she thought, shrinking against Cale's chest. "Look at me. I'm nobody. Stop," Cale murmured, so quietly only she could hear. "I can feel your doubt through our bond. You are my mate, my queen, their Luna, and anyone who questions that will answer to me." His fierce protectiveness steadied her, though it didn't completely erase the shame that burned in her cheeks as he carried her through corridors of polished stone and rich tapestries. Wolves stepped aside to let them pass, their whispers following in their wake. "Is that really? She smells like nobody. No pack bonds. The king's found his mate? But she's so..." "Enough." Cale's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. Power rolled off him in waves that made every wolf in the corridor bare their throats in submission. "The next person who speaks of my mate with anything less than respect will find themselves in the dungeons. Am I clear?" A chorus of, "Yes, Alpha King," echoed through the space. Cale's chambers were more beautiful than anything Sera had ever imagined. Enormous. The windows overlooked forests and mountains, their glass so clear it seemed almost invisible. Rich furs covered a massive bed, and a fireplace large enough to stand in already blazed with welcoming warmth. Everything spoke of power, wealth, and ancient heritage, and she was supposed to belong here, to rule beside him. The thought was almost laughable. Cale set her carefully on the edge of the bed, kneeling before her to examine her injured feet with gentle hands. "Mira will be here soon. She's our best healer, and I can heal myself," Sera interrupted, then immediately regretted her sharp tone. I have some healing ability. Small injuries, at least. I used to help with..." She stopped, not wanting to explain how she'd spent years tending wounds for a pack that never appreciated her efforts. Cale studied her face. "You have healing gifts?" "Small ones," she admitted. "Nothing impressive. I can't do major wounds or illnesses, just cuts and bruises, mostly." "Show me," he said, his voice gentle but curious. Sera hesitated, then placed her hands over the worst of the cuts on her feet. She reached for that quiet place inside herself, where her meager power lived, and felt it respond more easily than it ever had before. Golden light, faint but present, glowed from her palms. The wounds began to knit closed, the pain fading to dull aches. When she looked up, Cale was staring at her with something like awe. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "That light," he said softly. "It's the same color as..." He stopped, shaking his head. "Healer gifts are rare among wolves, especially omegas. This is not a small power, Sera. This is something precious." Before she could respond, a knock sounded at the door. A woman entered, tall and graceful, with auburn hair streaked with silver and kind brown eyes that immediately found Sera. "My king," she said, bowing slightly. Then her gaze moved to Sera, and her expression transformed into one of wonder. "By the goddess, the prophecy." "Later, Mira," Kale interrupted. "Right now my mate needs care. She's been in the thornwood for 3 days, inadequately clothed and without proper food or shelter." Mira's expression hardened. "Who?" She caught herself, professional demeanor snapping into place. "Of course, Your Majesty. May I approach?" Kale looked to Sera, waiting for her permission. The gesture didn't go unnoticed by Mira, whose eyebrows rose slightly. "Yes," Sera said quietly. "Please." The healer moved forward with practiced efficiency, her hands glowing with a deeper, richer gold than Sera's own healing light. As she worked, examining and treating injuries Sera hadn't even realized she'd sustained, she kept up a gentle stream of conversation. "I'm Mira, head healer and unofficial grandmother to every wolf in this territory," she said with a warm smile. "And you are?" "Sera," she replied, then hesitated. "Formerly of Silvermoon Pack." Mira's hands paused for just a moment. "Silvermoon? Garrett's territory? You know it?" "I know of it," Mira said carefully. "Their policies on certain matters are not aligned with ours." Her tone suggested she knew exactly what had happened, why Sera had been exiled. "She was cast out," Kale said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "For a dormant wolf, left to die in the thornwood." Mira's expression turned fierce, barbaric, but not surprising from Garrett. He's always been more concerned with appearance of strength than actual compassion. She looked at Sera with sudden intensity. "Your wolf isn't dormant, child. She's awakening. I can feel her now." The mate bond triggered what was always there, just waiting. "That's what Kale said," Sera whispered. "But I don't understand. Why would my wolf wait? Why not emerge when I was younger, when it would have saved me from everything?" Mira's hands stilled, and she exchanged a meaningful look with Kale. "There are some bloodlines," she said, slowly, "where the wolf remains dormant until the mate bond forms. It's a protection, actually. These wolves are often powerful," Kale finished, "more powerful than their bodies could safely handle without a mate to balance and anchor them." Sera stared at them both. "I'm not powerful. I can barely heal a scratch." "You healed yourself just now with no training," Mira pointed out, "and your light is pure. No darkness, no corruption. That's exceptionally rare." She resumed her work, treating the last of Sera's injuries. "Give yourself time, child. Your wolf will emerge fully when she's ready. And when she does, I suspect you'll surprise everyone." After Mira left, promising to return with appropriate clothing and food, Sera found herself alone with Kale for the first time since arriving at the castle. The reality of her situation crashed over her in waves. She was in the Alpha King's chambers. She was supposedly his mate, his queen. And outside this room, an entire kingdom waited to judge whether she was worthy. "You're afraid," Kale observed, moving to sit beside her on the bed, close but not touching, giving her space while remaining near enough to provide comfort. "Terrified," she admitted. "Your people, they were looking at me like they don't understand yet," he finished. "They will, Sera. Once they see you, know you, feel the mate bond's truth through our pack connections." He paused. "But I won't lie to you. There will be challenges, questions. Some may test you, try to prove you unworthy." "Because I can't shift," she said flatly. "Because they don't know you yet," he corrected, "and because change is always met with resistance. I've been Alpha King for 5 years, and in that time, I've broken many old traditions. Some have accepted this. Others—" He shrugged. "Others wait for any sign of weakness to exploit." Sera pulled her knees to her chest, making herself small. "Then maybe I should—" "Don't," Kale interrupted, his voice firm. "Don't suggest leaving. Don't doubt yourself. And don't let fear of others' judgment steal what the goddess gave us." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently cupped her face. "You are my mate, Sera. That is not negotiable. Not to me, not to them, not to anyone." His certainty was intoxicating. Sera wanted to believe him, to trust that the mate bond was enough. But 22 years of rejection had taught her that belonging was never guaranteed. "What if I fail?" she whispered. "Then we fail together," he said simply. "But I don't think you will. I think you're stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and far more powerful than anyone ever told you." Before she could respond, another knock interrupted them. Kale's expression shifted to something more formal, more distant. "Enter." The door opened to admit 3 wolves, all radiating authority and power that marked them as high-ranking pack members. The first was a massive male with gray-streaked dark hair and scars that spoke of countless battles. The second was an elegant female, with ice-blonde hair and sharp blue eyes that assessed Sera with calculating precision. The third was younger, maybe 30, with sandy hair and an open, curious expression. "Your Majesty," the scarred male said, bowing slightly, "forgive the intrusion, but the council is convening. They demand—" He caught himself. "They request your presence to discuss recent developments." His gaze flickered to Sera, and she saw the questions burning there. "Sera," Kale said, his hand finding hers and squeezing gently. "These are my Beta, Gamma, and Delta. My inner circle, Marcus, Elena, and Finn." He turned to them. "This is Sera, my mate and your queen." The silence that followed was deafening. Elena, the blonde female, was the first to recover. "Your mate," she repeated, her tone carefully neutral. "Forgive me, Your Majesty, but the bond, we cannot feel it through pack connections. Because it's new," Kale replied, "formed only hours ago, and Sera's wolf is still emerging fully, once the claiming is complete." "Claiming?" Sera gasped, heat flooding her face. Kale's expression softened as he looked at her. "The bite," he explained gently. "It's how mates seal their bond, allow their wolves to fully merge. It also connects the claimed mate to all pack bonds, lets them feel and be felt by the territory." When does that happen?" Sera asked, very aware of the 3 high-ranking wolves watching their exchange. "When you're ready," Kale said firmly. "Not before. I told you, little mate. Choice is yours." Marcus, the scarred Beta, made a sound that might have been approval. "The council won't like this," he said bluntly. "They've been pushing you to choose a mate from one of the noble bloodlines, to strengthen alliances through marriage." "I don't care what the council likes," Kale replied, his voice taking on an edge of command. "The goddess chose my mate. I will not reject her gift for political convenience." "No one's suggesting rejection," Elena said quickly. "But perhaps a period of courtship? Time for the pack to accept the bond? For Lady Sera to learn our ways?" "I'm not a lady," Sera heard herself say. All eyes turned to her, and she fought the urge to shrink back. I was an Omega, exiled. I have no title, no status, no—" "You're my mate," Kale interrupted, his voice carrying absolute authority. "That gives you the highest status in my kingdom, second only to me. Anyone who suggests otherwise challenges my claim, and through it, challenges me directly." The threat in his words was unmistakable. Marcus, Elena, and Finn all immediately bared their throats in submission. "We meant no disrespect, Your Majesty." Finn, the youngest, said quickly. His eyes found Sera's, and she saw genuine curiosity there, not judgment. "We're just surprised. You've never shown interest in anyone before. We'd begun to think you'd never find your mate." Kale's expression softened slightly. "I'd begun to think the same," he admitted. "But the goddess works in her own time." He stood, drawing Sera up with him. "Tell the council I'll address them within the hour. Sera will be presented as queen, and they will show appropriate respect." "Kale," Sera started, panic rising. "Trust me," he said softly, for her ears alone. "I won't let anyone harm you. Not with words, not with actions. You're under my protection now." After the 3 wolves departed, Sera found she was trembling. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't face a council of powerful wolves who all think I'm unworthy." "I can't breathe," Kale commanded gently, his hands on her shoulders. "Look at me, Sera." She did, drowning in those golden eyes that held such certainty. "You've already survived the worst," he said. "You've endured exile, abandonment, nearly freezing to death in the thornwood, facing a room full of wolves who question your place. After everything you've been through, This is nothing." "Easy for you to say," she muttered. "You're an alpha king. I'm my mate," he finished. "My queen, the other half of my soul, and I will stand beside you through every challenge, every doubt, every moment of fear. You're not alone anymore, Sera. Do you understand? You're not alone." The words broke something open inside her, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Cale pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her with careful strength. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair. "I've got you, little mate, and I'm not letting go." They stood like that for long moments, Sera drawing strength from his solid presence, from the mate bond that pulsed between them like a living thing. Slowly, her panic eased. Not gone, but manageable. "Okay," she finally said, pulling back to look up at him. "Okay, I'll try." His smile was radiant. "That's all I ask." Mira returned shortly with clothing fit for a queen, a deep blue gown that complemented Sera's coloring, soft leather boots, and a silver circlet that made her protest immediately. "I can't wear that," she said, eyeing the delicate crown. "I'm not—" "You're the queen," Mira interrupted firmly, in a tone that suggested she'd brook no argument, "and you'll dress the part. Now hold still while I fix your hair." As the healer worked, braiding and arranging Sera's dark hair into an elegant style, Cale dressed in formal attire, black leather and silver fastenings that emphasized his powerful build and royal status. "The council chamber is directly below the throne room," he explained as they prepared to leave. 12 seats for the territory's 12 elders, plus positions for my inner circle. They advise on matters of law, territory disputes, and pack welfare. And now they'll advise on whether I'm fit to be queen," Sera said quietly. Cale's jaw tightened. "They'll accept you because I command it. But more than that, they'll accept you. Because once they know you, see your strength, they'll have no choice but to recognize what I already know, that you're exactly who this kingdom needs." The walk to the council chamber felt like a march to judgment. Wolves lined the corridors, all staring as their king passed with his newly claimed mate. Sera kept her chin up, refusing to show the fear that clawed at her insides. The council chamber doors were massive, carved with scenes of wolves running beneath the moon. As they opened, Sera got her first glimpse of the wolves who would determine her fate. 12 ancient faces, some male, some female, all radiating power and authority. They sat in a semicircle around a central space where 2 thrones stood, one clearly Cale's, massive and imposing. The other, slightly smaller but no less elegant, had clearly been empty for some time. Until now. As Cale led her forward, every eye in the room tracked their movement. She could feel their judgment, their skepticism, their disbelief, that this small, broken exile could possibly be their queen. "Council," Cale's voice rang out, carrying command that demanded attention. "I present to you Sera, my true mate, recognized by the goddess and accepted by my wolf. She will be crowned Queen of the Northern Territories and Luna to all packs under my rule." The silence that followed was broken by a single voice, an elderly female with white hair and milky eyes that suggested blindness, though Sera had the distinct feeling she saw more than anyone else in the room. "The prophecy," she whispered, her voice carrying clearly despite its softness. "The exiled one, marked by the moon, whose wolf sleeps until true bond wakes. She who will unite what was severed, heal what was broken, and bring the old magic back to our lands." Every head turned toward the elderly female. Cale's hand tightened on Sera's. "Elder Thea," he said carefully. "What prophecy?" The old woman's milky eyes somehow found Sera's face. "The one spoken 300 years ago, young king. The one we thought was legend." She smiled, revealing surprising warmth. "Welcome, child. Welcome home." The council chamber erupted into chaos. "The prophecy is a children's tale. Elder Thea has finally lost her mind. This exile cannot possibly be." Silence. Cale's voice didn't rise in volume, but power exploded through the room, pressing against every wolf present until they had no choice but to submit. The golden in his eyes had gone molten, his alpha authority absolute. "Elder Thea speaks. You will listen." The elderly seer smiled, seemingly unaffected by the tension crackling through the air. "Come closer, child," she said to Sera, beckoning with a gnarled hand. "Let me see what the others are too blind to recognize." Sera looked to Kale, who nodded encouragingly. On trembling legs, she approached the old woman, acutely aware of every eye tracking her movement. Elder Thea's hands, when they touched Sera's face, were surprisingly gentle. Cool fingers traced her features as though reading a language written on her skin. The milky eyes stared past Sera, or perhaps through her, seeing something no one else could. "Born under the dark moon," Thea murmured. "Mother's line broken by tragedy, father's blood carrying ancient gifts." Wolf locked away, not by weakness, but by necessity too much power for an unmated vessel to contain. Her fingers moved to Sera's chest, pressing lightly over her heart. And here, the mark of the goddess herself, hidden beneath skin and bone, but present nonetheless. "What mark?" Sera whispered, though she felt something responding to the elder's touch, a warmth spreading through her chest that she'd never noticed before. "The moon mark," Thea said simply, "given to those the goddess has special plans for. Most never know they carry it, but I can see what others cannot." She pulled her hands away, turning to face the council. "This girl is the one spoken of in the old prophecy. The exiled queen who would bring the old magic back to our lands. That's impossible," declared a gruff male voice from the council seats. Sera recognized him as Elder Ronan, a massive wolf with a scar bisecting his face. "The prophecy speaks of power, of magic that hasn't been seen in generations. She can't even shift." "Yet," Mira's voice came from the doorway, where she'd apparently been listening. "She can't shift yet. But I felt her healing power, Ronan, pure and uncorrupted. That alone is remarkable." "Parlor tricks," another council member dismissed. "Any wolf can learn basic healing." "No," Kale said firmly, his hand finding Sera's and drawing her back to his side. "Not like hers. Her light is different, purer, and it's growing stronger by the hour as our bond deepens." Elder Thea nodded. "The mate bond is key. It always was. The prophecy states clearly, her wolf sleeps until true bond wakes. King Kale is her anchor, the one who allows her power to manifest safely." "Convenient," Ronan muttered. "A girl appears from nowhere, claims mate bond with our king, and suddenly she's a prophesied savior?" "I didn't claim anything." Sera found her voice, surprising herself. "I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask for any of this. I was praying to die less alone, and instead," she stopped, heat flooding her cheeks as she realized what she'd admitted. Kale's arm came around her waist, pulling her protectively against his side. "Instead, the goddess answered her prayer and mine both." He finished for her. "I've searched for my mate for 5 years. I've traveled to every pack, attended every gathering, rejected every attempt to arrange a political marriage. And last night, I felt her calling through a bond that shouldn't have formed, yet calling from the thornwood where she'd been left to die." His golden eyes swept the council. "If you think I would mistake this connection, this pull, you insult both my intelligence and my wolf. Sera is my mate. That is beyond question." "No one questions the bond, Your Majesty." Elena spoke up from where she stood with Marcus and Finn. "But perhaps we could test her abilities? If she truly carries the power the prophecy speaks of, surely it would be evident." "What kind of test?" Kale's voice had gone dangerously soft. Elena met his gaze steadily. "Nothing harmful, simply a demonstration of her gifts. If she can perform even minor healing without training, imagine what she might accomplish with proper instruction." "She's exhausted," Kale argued. "She's been through trauma." "I'll do it," Sera interrupted quietly. Every head swiveled toward her. She lifted her chin, channeling a confidence she didn't feel. "If a test will satisfy the council's doubts, I'll attempt it." Kale looked down at her, concern evident in his expression. "You don't have to prove anything, little mate." "Yes, I do," she whispered back. "If I'm to be queen, if I'm to have any authority here, I can't hide behind you. Let me try." Something like pride flickered through his golden eyes. He nodded slowly, then addressed the council. "One test, nothing dangerous. And if she succeeds or fails, the result changes nothing about her position as my mate and your queen." "Agreed," Elder Thea said before anyone else could speak. "Bring forth young Thomas, the boy with the training injury." Murmurs ran through the council, but no one argued. Minutes later, a young wolf barely 16 by Sera's guess was escorted in. He cradled his left arm against his chest, his face pale with pain. The scent of blood and wolfsbane hung around him. "Training accident," Marcus explained quietly. "Blade coated in wolfsbane. The wound won't heal naturally, and even Mira's struggled with it. We've been treating him for 3 days." Sera's heart sank. Wolfsbane poisoning was serious, potentially fatal if left untreated, and they wanted her, with her minimal, untrained abilities, to heal it. "This isn't fair," Kale growled. "Even experienced healers struggle with wolfsbane. You're setting her up to fail." "If she's truly prophesied, truly powerful," Ronan countered, "then she should be able to manage what trained healers cannot." Sera stepped forward before Kale could argue further. "May I?" she asked the boy gently. Thomas nodded, his young face tight with pain and curiosity. Carefully, Sera unwrapped the bandages around his arm, revealing an angry wound that wept black poison. The sight made her stomach turn, but she placed her hands over the injury, reaching for that quiet place inside herself where her power lived. But this time, something was different. The power that had been a trickle before now felt like a river, dammed and waiting to be released. "Your wolf," she realized. "She's awake. She's helping." "Yes," a voice that was hers but not hers whispered in her mind. "Together, we are more. Let me show you." Golden light exploded from Sera's palms, so bright that several council members gasped and shielded their eyes. But it wasn't just gold anymore, threads of silver wove through it. And something else, something ancient and pure that smelled like moonlight and wild places. The black poison began to retreat, burning away under the combined power of light and will. Sera could feel it fighting back, trying to corrupt her healing energy, but her wolf snarled internally and pushed harder. The wound knit closed, not slowly, as it should have, but in a matter of seconds. Clean pink skin replaced the angry infection, and Thomas's face transformed from pain to wonder. It's gone," he breathed, flexing his fingers experimentally. "The pain, the poison, everything. I can feel my wolf again." Sera stumbled backward, suddenly dizzy. Kale caught her immediately, his strong arm supporting her weight as the room spun. "Easy, little mate," he murmured. "You used too much too fast." "Worth it," she managed, looking up at the stunned faces of the council. Did I pass your test?" Elder Thea was laughing, a delighted sound that seemed to fill the chamber. "Pass, child. You just performed healing that shouldn't be possible for an untrained wolf. You burned away wolfsbane poison like it was nothing more than a common infection." She turned to Ronan. "Still think she's a parlor trick?" The scarred elder had gone pale. "That's that level of power it shouldn't be possible without decades of training. Unless," Elder Thea said pointedly, "she's exactly who the prophecy said she'd be. The exiled queen, marked by the goddess, carrier of the old magic that our kind thought was lost forever." Silence fell over the council. Sera could feel the shift in energy, the way they were reassessing her, seeing her not as an unworthy exile but as something else entirely, something that might be dangerous in its own right. "The prophecy speaks of unity," another elder said slowly, an older female with kind eyes, "of healing what was broken, of bringing together what was severed." "What does that mean, Thea?" The old seer's expression turned grave. "It means change is coming. The old divisions between packs, the rigid hierarchies, the laws that cast out those deemed different, all of it will be challenged. And this girl," she gestured to Sera, "will be at the center of it all." "That sounds like upheaval," Ronan said darkly. "Chaos. Or evolution," Kale countered. "Our ways are ancient, yes. But some ancient things need to change if we're to survive." His arm tightened around Sera's waist. "I've already broken tradition by refusing arranged marriages, by reforming laws that allowed abuse in the name of pack hierarchy. Sera's arrival simply continues that path." "Some would say accelerates it dangerously," Ronan muttered. "Then let them say it," Kale replied, his voice carrying absolute authority. "But not in this chamber. Not in my presence. The decision is made. Sera is my mate, your queen, and Luna to all packs under my rule. Tomorrow night, at moonrise, she will be formally crowned, and the mate bond will be sealed through claiming." Sera's heart lurched. "Tomorrow night, so soon." As if sensing her panic, Kale's thumb traced soothing circles against her hip. Council dismissed, he said firmly. We'll reconvene in 3 days to discuss integration of Queen Sera into territory governance. The council filed out slowly, some bowing respectfully to Sera as they passed, others avoiding her eyes entirely. Elder Thea lingered, approaching with that knowing smile. You'll do well, child, she said softly. Trust your wolf, trust your mate, and trust that the goddess doesn't make mistakes, even when her plans seem impossible. She patted Sera's hand gently. Welcome to your destiny. After everyone had left, Sera sagged against Kyle, suddenly overwhelmed by everything that had happened. That was incredible, Kale finished, turning her to face him. You were incredible, Sera. Do you understand what you just did? Wolfsbane. Poisoning is nearly impossible to heal. Even Mira, with all her training and experience, struggles with it. And you, I almost killed myself doing it, she admitted. I still feel dizzy. Because you used power you haven't learned to control yet, he said, but there was pride in his voice. With training, with time, you'll be unstoppable. I don't want to be unstoppable, Sera whispered. I just want... She stopped, not sure how to voice the longing in her chest. What do you want, little mate? Kale asked gently, his hands cupping her face. To belong, she admitted. To be enough. To not wake up and find this was all a dream and I'm still dying in the thornwood. Pain flickered through his golden eyes. You belong. You are enough. And this is real, Sera. I'm real. Our bond is real. And I will spend every day proving it to you until you believe it in your bones. He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. Tomorrow night, I'll claim you. Seal our bond completely. And then everyone, every wolf in this territory and beyond will feel our connection. They'll know beyond doubt that you're mine and I'm yours. Heat flooded through Sera at the thought. The claiming bite. The final, irreversible step that would bind them together completely. I'm scared, she admitted. I know, he said softly. But you don't have to be. I'll make it good for you, Sera. I'll make it everything a first claiming should be: gentle, careful, perfect. The promise in his voice sent shivers down her spine. Not fear this time, but anticipation. Before she could respond, urgent footsteps echoed in the corridor. Marcus burst through the door, his expression grim. Your Majesty, we have a problem. Kale's demeanor shifted instantly from mate to king. Report. Messengers from Silvermoon Pack just arrived at the border. Alpha Garrett demands an audience. Marcus's eyes flickered to Sera. He's claiming theft of Pack property and demanding immediate return of his exiled daughter. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sera felt ice spreading through her veins as Kale's power exploded outward, shadows literally coiling around his feet. Property? His voice was deadly quiet. He called her property? His exact words, Your Majesty, Marcus confirmed. He also threatens to petition the Council of Alphas for intervention if you don't comply. Kale's laugh was cold and utterly without humor. Let him try. Sera was exiled, cast out, left to die. He has no claim on her whatsoever. Technically, Elena's voice came from the doorway where she'd appeared behind Marcus. Exile can be reversed by the Alpha who ordered it. If Garrett revokes the exile and demands her return, she's my mate, Kale snarled. Mate bonds supersede all Pack claims. Even he should know that. He's claiming the bond is invalid because it was formed after exile, Elena explained carefully. He argues that she belonged to no Pack when you found her, making her unclaimed territory. And as her birth Alpha, he has first right of reclamation. Sera felt sick. He's lying, she whispered. He doesn't want me back. He made it clear I was an embarrassment to his bloodline. Then why? Finn asked from behind Elena. Elder Thea's voice answered before anyone else could. The old seer had apparently remained nearby, because word has already spread. An exile who became queen. A nobody who manifested powerful healing gifts. A girl who might fulfill the old prophecy. Her milky eyes somehow found Sera's face. He wants to reclaim you so he can control the power you represent. Or eliminate the threat I pose to his authority, Sera added bitterly. If I succeeded despite being exiled, what does that say about his judgment? Kale's arms came around her from behind, pulling her back against his chest. It doesn't matter what he wants. He's not getting you. You're mine, Sera. My mate. My queen. And anyone who tries to take you from me will learn exactly why. I'm called the Northern Terror. The nickname was unfamiliar to Sera, but the other wolves' reactions told her it was well earned. Marcus actually smiled grimly. I'll tell the messengers you decline the audience? No, Kale said, surprising everyone. Tell them Alpha Garrett may come, tomorrow at dawn. He'll witness the claiming ceremony and understand that any claim he thinks he has on Sera died the moment our mate bond formed. Kale, Sera started. Trust me, he said softly, for her ears alone. I won't let him hurt you, won't let him take you. But facing him, showing him exactly how wrong he was about you, don't you want that? Don't you want him to see what he threw away? Sera thought about it. About Alpha Garrett, who'd looked at her with such disgust as he exiled her. About her mother, who'd turned away without a fight. About every wolf in Silvermoon Pack who'd whispered defective behind her back. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I want them to see. Kale's smile against her hair was fierce. Then they will, and they'll regret every moment of the pain they caused you. That evening, alone in Kale's chambers, their chambers now, Sera stood before the massive windows overlooking the forest. The moon was rising again, not quite full but close, its silver light painting the world in shades of gray and shadow. She heard Kale enter, felt his presence even before his arms came around her waist from behind. You should be resting, he murmured against her neck. You exhausted yourself with the healing. I can't rest, she admitted. My mind won't stop racing. The prophecy, the council, Garrett coming tomorrow. The claiming, he finished softly. You're nervous about that too. Yes, she breathed. I don't know what to expect. If it will hurt, it won't hurt, he interrupted gently, turning her to face him. Not if I do it right. The claiming bite is meant to be pleasurable, Sera, bonding, not painful, and I'll be gentle with you, I promise. His golden eyes held such sincerity that her fear eased slightly. How does it work exactly? Kale's hands came up to frame her face. We'll complete the mate bond through intimacy. At the moment of culmination, I'll bite here. His thumb traced the junction of her neck and shoulder. The mark will be permanent, visible to all, proclaiming you as mine. And in return, you'll be able to feel every pack bond, every wolf in my territory. You'll be Luna in truth, not just name. And it has to happen tomorrow? She asked. With Garrett watching? He won't be in the room, Kale said quickly. The claiming is private, sacred. But the ceremony beforehand, where you're crowned queen, that will be public. And afterward, when we emerge with you marked and our bond complete, he'll see. They'll all see. Sera's fingers found the edge of his shirt, tracing the symbols tattooed on his skin beneath. What if I'm not ready? What if? Then we wait, he said simply. I meant what I said, Sera. Choice is yours. Always. If you need more time. No, she interrupted, surprising herself. I don't want to wait. I want to be fully yours, completely bound, so that no one can ever take me away, can ever claim I don't belong. Kale's eyes had gone molten gold. You're sure? I'm terrified, she admitted. But yes, I'm sure. His kiss, when it came, was gentle but thorough, a claiming in miniature, a promise of what tomorrow would bring. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. Tomorrow, he whispered against her lips. Tomorrow you become my queen, in every way. Sera's wolf, fully awake now, purred in agreement. Tomorrow, she echoed. Tomorrow we become complete. That night, Sera slept in Kale's arms for the first time. Not in separate chambers, not with distance between them, but wrapped in his warmth and surrounded by his scent. And for the first time since her exile, she felt truly safe. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Garrett's arrival, the crowning ceremony, the claiming that would seal her fate forever. But tonight, in the darkness of their shared chambers, Sera let herself believe in the impossible, that she was enough, that she belonged, that the mate bond was real and unbreakable, that the exiled Omega who'd whispered to the moon had found her home at last. Dawn arrived too quickly and too slowly all at once. Sera woke wrapped in Kale's arms, his steady heartbeat beneath her ear, his scent surrounding her like a protective shield. For a moment, she let herself simply exist in this perfect stillness, memorizing the feeling of safety, of belonging, before the chaos of the day began. "You're awake," Cale murmured, his voice rough with sleep. His hand traced lazy patterns up and down her spine. "Did you sleep at all?" "Some," she admitted. "I kept dreaming about before. The exile. Garrett's face when he cast me out." Cale's arms tightened around her. Today, he'll see exactly what he threw away, and he'll spend the rest of his miserable life regretting it. A knock at the door interrupted them. Mira's voice came through, professionally cheerful. "Your Majesties, it's time to prepare. Alpha Garrett and his delegation arrived an hour ago. They're waiting in the Great Hall." Sera's stomach twisted. He was here. Her former Alpha, the man who'd declared her worthless, who'd sentenced her to death in the thornwood. He was here, and in a few hours, she'd face him, not as an exile, but as a queen. "We'll be ready," Cale called back. He looked down at Sera, his golden eyes searching her face. "You don't have to do this. I can have him sent away. Tell him the audience is denied." "No," Sera said, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. "I need to face him. I need him to see that his judgment was wrong, that I'm not the mistake he claimed I was." Pride blazed in Cale's expression. "That's my queen," he said softly, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Let's show them all exactly who you are." The preparation that followed was more elaborate than anything Sera had experienced. Mira and 2 other attendants worked for hours, bathing her in water scented with moonflowers, dressing her in a gown of midnight blue that seemed to shimmer with captured starlight. The fabric was soft as silk but strong as leather, clearly designed for both beauty and the practicality of wolf nature. Her dark hair was woven with silver threads and small moonstones that caught the light with every movement. The crown, the actual crown she'd wear as queen, rested on a velvet cushion nearby. It was delicate but powerful, wrought in silver and set with a single large moonstone at its center that seemed to glow with inner light. "You look like the goddess herself walked among us," Mira said softly, her eyes suspiciously bright. "That bastard Garrett is going to choke on his own tongue when he sees you." Despite her nervousness, Sera smiled. "I hope so." "The ceremony will be simple," Mira explained as she made final adjustments to Sera's gown. "King Cale will present you to the assembled packs. Elder Thea, as our eldest and most respected seer, will perform the crowning. You'll speak the oath of Luna. I've written it down for you to memorize, and then the crown will be placed. After that," she paused meaningfully. "After that, we retreat to the private chambers for the claiming," Sera finished, heat flooding her cheeks. "Exactly. And when you emerge, marked and bonded, you'll be Luna in truth, connected to every wolf in this territory through pack bonds." Mira's expression grew serious. "It will be overwhelming at first. Hundreds of consciousnesses touching yours, their emotions and thoughts filtering through. But Cale will help you learn to shield, to control what you feel and what you don't." Sera nodded, trying not to think about how terrifying that sounded. Hundreds of minds connected. To hers? She'd spent her whole life feeling nothing. No pack bonds at all. The shift would be dramatic. A knock came at the door, and Cale entered, stopping dead at the sight of her. "Sera," he breathed, his golden eyes going molten. He was dressed in formal black leather with silver clasps, a crown of twisted silver branches resting on his dark hair. He looked every inch the powerful Alpha King, dangerous and beautiful and utterly commanding. But the way he looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered made her feel like the powerful one. "You're beautiful," he said, crossing to take her hands. "Absolutely stunning. Garrett is going to see you and realize he destroyed his own legacy when he cast you out." "I'm still terrified," she admitted quietly. "I know." His thumbs traced circles on her palms. "But you're not facing this alone. I'll be right beside you. Every moment, every breath. We do this together. Together." The word steadied her more than anything else could have. The great hall had been transformed. Hundreds of wolves filled the space, not just Kael's inner circle and council, but representatives from all 7 packs under his rule, plus visitors from neighboring territories who'd heard whispers of the prophesied queen and come to witness for themselves. And there, in a position of prominence that Sera suspected was deliberately chosen to make them uncomfortable, stood Alpha Garrett, and his delegation from Silvermoon Pack. Sera's breath caught at the sight of her former alpha. He looked older than she remembered, his face lined with stress, his eyes hard with the kind of bitterness that came from watching power slip through your fingers. Beside him stood her mother, looking small and diminished, refusing to meet Sera's gaze. The pain of that her own mother who wouldn't even look at her cut deeper than any of Garrett's insults ever had. Cale's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Steady, little mate," he whispered. "Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you hurt." She nodded, lifting her chin and letting her training in diplomatic composure take over. She was not the broken exile they'd cast out. She was Sera, mate to the Alpha King, about to become Queen of the Northern Territories. The ceremony began with the ancient rites. Elder Thea, dressed in ceremonial robes and looking more priestess than simple seer, stepped forward to address the assembled crowd. "We gather under the witness of the moon goddess to crown our Luna," she intoned, her voice carrying through the vast space despite her age. 300 years ago, a prophecy was spoken. The exiled queen, it said, marked by the goddess, would come in our hour of greatest need. She would carry the old magic, heal what was broken, unite what was severed. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sera saw Garrett's expression darken, saw the way his hands clenched into fists. "Many believe this prophecy was myth," Thea continued. "A story told to give hope in dark times. But the goddess does not speak in myths. She speaks in truth." Her milky eyes seemed to find Sera, despite their blindness. This girl, cast out by her birth pack and left to die, called to the moon in her darkest hour. And the moon answered by sending her true mate, our king, to save her. Elder Thea raised her hands, and power rippled through the hall, ancient, primal, undeniable. "Step forward, Sera, mate to King Cale, and speak the oath of Luna." Cale released her hand, and Sera walked alone to the center of the hall, where Elder Thea waited with the crown. Every eye tracked her movement. She could feel Garrett's hatred like a physical thing, her mother's shame, the curiosity and skepticism of wolves who'd never met her. But she could also feel Cale's pride, Mira's support, Elder Thea's approval. The positive emotions gave her strength. "Repeat after me," Thea said, her voice now for Sera alone. "I, Sera, mate to King Cale, accept the mantle of Luna." "I, Sera, mate to King Cale, accept the mantle of Luna," Sera repeated, her voice clear and steady. "I pledge my life to the protection of these packs, the welfare of these wolves, the prosperity of these lands." Sera repeated the words, feeling their weight, their truth. This wasn't just ceremony, it was a sacred vow that bound her to every wolf present. "I will lead with wisdom, judge with fairness, and love with the fierce devotion of the wolf." As Sera spoke the final words, something shifted in the air. Power rose around her, flowing from the ground itself, responding to the oath. Her wolf, fully awake now, howled in recognition and acceptance. And then Elder Thea placed the crown upon her head. The moonstone at its center blazed with sudden brilliant light, and Sera gasped as power flooded through her. Not painful, but intense images and sensations cascading through her mind. She saw territories she'd never visited, felt the pulse of 7 packs, sensed the ancient magic woven into the very stones of the castle. "Behold," Elder Thea announced, her voice ringing with authority. "Queen Sera, Luna of the Northern Territories, carrier of the old magic, fulfillment of prophecy." The hall erupted, not in applause, but in howls, hundreds of wolves raising their voices in recognition and acceptance of their new Luna. The sound was beautiful and terrifying, primal and sacred all at once, all except one voice, one conspicuous silence. Alpha Garrett stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. "This is a mockery," he snarled, his voice cutting through the howls. "That girl is mine property of Silvermoon Pack. You cannot crown what you have no right to claim." The howling cut off abruptly. Dangerous silence filled the hall. Cale moved to Sera's side with deadly grace, his power radiating outward in visible waves of shadow and gold. "Property?" His voice was soft, which somehow made it more terrifying. "You dare call my mate your queen property? She was mine first," Garrett insisted, though Sera could see fear beginning to crack through his bravado. "Born to my pack, under my authority, the exile can be revoked. I revoke it now and demand her return." On what grounds? Kale asked, still in that dangerously soft voice. On the grounds that she was judged prematurely, Garrett said, clearly reciting a prepared argument. New evidence suggests her wolf was merely dormant, not absent. As her birth alpha, I have the right to reclaim her and correct the error. Error? Kale's laugh was cold. You left her to die in the thornwood. Alone, bleeding, freezing. That wasn't error, Garrett. That was murder. I followed pack law. You followed cruelty, Kale interrupted, his voice rising now with controlled fury. Ancient, outdated laws that have no place in modern territories. And even if your claim had merit, which it doesn't, you made a fatal mistake. He pulled Sera against his side, his arm possessive around her waist. Mate bonds supersede all pack claims. Sera is mine, my mate, my queen, my Luna, and I will burn your entire territory to ash before I let you take her. The threat hung in the air, absolute and undeniable. Every wolf in the hall knew Kale had the power to make good on it. Garrett's face had gone purple with rage. The Council of Alphas will hear of this. Let them, Kale said dismissively. In fact, let's call them now. Let them judge whether an alpha who exiles his own daughter based on outdated superstition has any moral authority to demand anything. His golden eyes blazed. You want to make this an official dispute? Fine. But know this, Garrett, you will lose. And when you do, I'll personally ensure that every pack in the realm knows exactly what kind of leader you are. You arrogant. Careful, Kale warned. You're in my territory now, speaking to your queen. Continue to insult her, and exile will be the least of your concerns. Sera had remained silent through the exchange, but now she found her voice. Why? She asked Garrett, her tone not angry but genuinely curious. Why do you really want me back? You made it clear I was an embarrassment. A stain on your bloodline. So why? Garrett's eyes flickered to her, then away, unable to hold her gaze. You're my daughter. No, Sera interrupted. I stopped being your daughter the moment you cast me out. So tell me the truth. Is it the prophecy? The power I've manifested? Are you afraid of what it means that the defective exile became queen? The silence that followed was damning. Garrett's expression confirmed what Sera had suspected. He didn't want her back out of love or regret. He wanted to control the threat she represented to his authority. You threw away something precious, Sera said softly, and she was surprised to find she felt pity more than anger. Not just me, but the chance to be part of something greater. The old magic, the prophecy, the unity it represents. You could have been part of that. But you chose pride over compassion, tradition over growth. She looked at her mother, who finally met her gaze. The shame in those familiar eyes cut deep, but Sera found she could bear it now. I forgive you, she said quietly. Both of you. Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to carry your bitterness forward into my new life. Her mother's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Sera, I'm sorry. I know, Sera said, but it's too late. I'm not yours anymore. I'm his. She looked up at Kale, seeing her future in his golden eyes. And I'm my own. And I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Elder Thea stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. The mate bond is absolute, Alpha Garrett. You have no claim. Your presence here is now concluded. You may stay for the celebration that follows the claiming ceremony, or you may depart. But you will not challenge this union again. Garrett looked around the hall, seeing no support for his position. Even his own delegation looked uncomfortable, embarrassed by his display. This isn't over, he said finally, but the words rang hollow. Yes, Kale said with finality. It is. Guards, escort Alpha Garrett and his delegation to guest quarters. They may rest before their journey home. As Garrett was led away, still sputtering protests, Sera felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The confrontation she'd dreaded was over. And she'd faced it not as a broken exile, but as a queen who knew her worth. Kale turned to the assembled crowd. The crowning is complete. In 1 hour, the claiming ceremony will seal the bond. Until then, prepare for celebration. Tonight, we welcome our new Luna. The howls rose again, joyous and accepting, and this time, Sera let herself believe them. The private chambers had been prepared with care. Candles filled every surface, their soft light creating an intimate glow. The bed had been draped with fresh linens and scattered with moonflowers whose sweet scent filled the air. Someone, probably Mira, had thought of everything. Sera stood by the window, her crown removed but her ceremonial gown still in place, watching the sun set over the mountains. In minutes, Kale would arrive. The claiming would begin, and everything would change forever. Her wolf was restless, eager, whining with need for their mate. The bond that had formed in the thornwood was strong, but incomplete. Like a bridge with the final stones missing. Tonight, those stones would be set, and the connection would be unbreakable. The door opened softly. She felt him before she heard him, the pull of the mate bond, the warmth of his presence. Sera. Kale's voice was rough with barely controlled desire. "Are you ready?" She turned to face him. He'd removed his crown and formal jacket, standing now in just black pants and an open white shirt that revealed the tattoos marking his chest. He looked younger this way, less king and more man, but no less powerful. "I'm nervous," she admitted, "but yes, I'm ready." He crossed to her slowly, giving her time to change her mind, to retreat. But Sera didn't move. When he reached her, his hands came up to frame her face with infinite gentleness. "I've imagined this moment for 5 years," he said softly. "Finding my mate, completing the bond, becoming whole." His thumbs traced her cheekbones. "But I never imagined anyone like you. Strong and gentle, broken and healing. Powerful beyond measure but humble enough to doubt it." "Kale, let me finish," he interrupted gently. "You asked me once why I would want you. An exile with a dormant wolf and no status. The answer is simple, Sera. I want you because you're you. Because your soul recognized mine. Because every instinct I have screams that you're the other half of me. And because he paused, his golden eyes intense. Because I'm falling in love with you." Sera's breath caught. Love. They'd known each other barely 2 days. And yet, "I feel it, too," she whispered. "I don't understand it. It's too fast, too intense. But when I'm with you, I feel complete for the first time in my life." His smile was radiant. "That's the mate bond, little mate. It doesn't follow human timelines or logic. It simply is." He kissed her then, and it was nothing like the gentle kiss from before. This was claiming, possessing, devouring. His tongue swept into her mouth, tasting and exploring, and Sera responded with equal hunger, her hands fisting in his shirt to pull him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale rested his forehead against hers. "I'm going to make love to you now," he said, his voice gone rough. "Slowly. Thoroughly. And when you're ready, when you're at the peak of pleasure, I'll bite. Seal our bond. Make you mine forever." Heat flooded through Sera, pooling low in her belly. "Yes," she breathed. "Please, Kale. I know what you need," he murmured, already working at the laces of her gown. "And I'm going to give it to you." The gown fell away, leaving her in just a thin shift. Kale's eyes darkened as he took in the sight of her, his gaze traveling from her face down her body with such intensity she felt it like a physical touch. "Beautiful," he growled. "So damn beautiful. And mine." His shirt disappeared next, revealing the full glory of his tattooed chest. Sera's hands explored the symbols marking his skin, feeling them pulse with power under her touch. "They react to you," Kale said, catching her hands and pressing them flat against his heart. "The marks, they're pack bonds, connections to every wolf under my rule. And after tonight, yours will be the strongest, the brightest." He guided her to the bed, laying her down with reverent care. The moonlight streaming through the windows painted them both in silver, creating an ethereal quality that made the moment feel even more sacred. What followed was slow and perfect, and everything Sera had never dared dream about. Kale took his time, learning every curve and hollow of her body, finding places of pleasure she hadn't known existed. His mouth and hands worshipped her until she was trembling and begging, her wolf howling for completion. And when he finally joined their bodies, moving with careful control despite his own desperate need, Sera felt the mate bond flare to brilliant life. Not complete yet, but so close. So impossibly close. "Now, little mate," Kale groaned, his control fraying. "I need—" "Yes," Sera gasped, tilting her head to expose her neck. "Claim me. Make me yours. His bite, when it came, was not painful. Instead, it sent lightning through her entire body, pleasure so intense it bordered on overwhelming. She felt his wolf merging with hers, felt their souls intertwining like threads of gold and shadow weaving together into something new and unbreakable. And then the pack bonds hit her. Thousands of consciousnesses suddenly connected to hers. She felt every wolf in Kale's territory, their joy, their curiosity, their acceptance and welcome. Elder Thea's ancient wisdom, Marcus's fierce loyalty, Mira's maternal affection, even young Thomas, whose wound she'd healed, radiating gratitude and wonder. It was overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying all at once. But Kale was there, his presence in her mind strong and steady, showing her how to shield, how to filter, how to exist as both individual and part of the whole. "Breathe, my queen," he murmured against her neck, his tongue soothing the claiming mark. "I've got you. Just breathe." Sera followed his guidance, and slowly the chaos settled into something manageable. She could still feel the pack bonds, but they were background now, a gentle hum of connection rather than overwhelming noise. "Is it always like that?" she asked when she could speak again. Kale chuckled, still holding her close. "The first time, yes, but you'll adjust. Learn to control what you feel and when." He pulled back to look at her, his golden eyes soft with affection. "How do you feel?" Sera considered. Her body ached, in the best way possible. Her neck throbbed where he'd marked her. And in her mind, for the first time in her life, she felt the presence of her pack, her wolves, her family. "Complete," she whispered. "I feel complete." His smile was everything. "Good. Because you are. We are." He kissed her gently. "My mate, my queen, my Sera." They lay together as the moon rose higher, basking in the afterglow and the newly formed bond that connected them. Outside, Sera could hear celebration wolves howling in joy, music playing, laughter echoing through the castle. "They're happy," she said, surprised. "Of course they are. Their king found his mate. Their Luna has arrived. This is the beginning of a new era, Sera, and you're at the center of it." Later, when they finally emerged from the chambers, Sera wore a high-collared gown that displayed the claiming mark with pride. The bite was visible to all, a silver scar in the shape of a crescent moon, marking her as Kale's mate and the territory's Luna. The celebration that followed was unlike anything Sera had experienced. Wolves from all 7 packs came to pay their respects, to touch her hand and feel the Luna bond connecting them. Even those who'd been skeptical in the council now showed genuine acceptance, their doubts erased by the undeniable reality of the mate bond. Alpha Garrett and his delegation had departed earlier, unable to stay and face the evidence of their mistake. But Sera found she didn't care. They were her past. This Kale, the Northern Territories, the prophecy she was meant to fulfill, this was her future. Elder Thea approached as the night grew late, her milky eyes twinkling with knowing amusement. "How does it feel, young queen? To be exactly where you were always meant to be?" "Overwhelming," Sera admitted. "But right, so perfectly right." "The journey is just beginning," Thea warned gently. "The prophecy speaks of healing and unity, but it also speaks of challenges, forces that will resist change, dangers that will test your strength and your bond." "Let them come," Kale said, his arm coming around Sera's waist. "We'll face them together." "Indeed you will," Thea agreed, "and you'll prevail. Because that's what mates do, they make each other stronger. They become more together than they ever could have been apart." As the celebration continued around them, Sera looked up at the moon, the same moon she'd whispered her desperate prayer to just 2 nights ago. It seemed impossible that so much could change in such a short time. That she could go from dying alone in the thornwood to standing here as queen, marked and claimed and utterly loved. "Thank you," she whispered to the goddess, to fate, to whatever force had brought her to this moment. Kale heard, his enhanced senses picking up even that quiet whisper. "For what, little mate?" "For answering my prayer," she said, looking up at him. "For sending you to me. For giving me a home when I thought I'd lost everything." His expression softened. "The goddess didn't give you a home, Sera. She gave you the strength to claim it for yourself. You walked through fire and came out forged in steel. This kingdom, this position, this life, you earned every bit of it. Tears pricked at her eyes, but they were good tears. Healing tears. "I love you," she said, the words coming easily now. "I know it's fast and probably crazy, but I love you, Kale." "I love you too," he replied without hesitation. "My exiled queen who whispered to the moon. My mate who saved herself. My Sera." They stood together beneath the moon that had witnessed both her lowest moment and her greatest triumph, surrounded by pack and celebration and the promise of a future neither of them could have imagined just days before. The exiled Omega had whispered to the moon in her darkest hour, and by dawn, the Alpha King had come to her door, bringing with him not rescue, but recognition, not salvation, but partnership, not an ending, but a beginning. And as Sera looked out at her territory, felt the pack bonds humming with acceptance and joy, she understood the truth Elder Thea had spoken. The prophecy hadn't been about power or magic or even destiny. It had been about a simple, profound truth, that sometimes the ones the world casts aside are exactly the ones meant to change it. She was the exiled queen, the Luna of the Northern Territories, the mate of the Alpha King, the carrier of old magic and the fulfillment of ancient prophecy. But most importantly, she was Sera, and she was finally, completely, irrevocably home. The autumn leaves painted the forest in shades of amber and crimson as Sera stood at the edge of the training grounds, watching the young wolves practice their shifting techniques. Her hand rested unconsciously on the gentle swell of her belly, barely noticeable yet, but undeniably there, life growing, inside her. A pup. The healers had confirmed it just 3 days ago, and the knowledge still felt surreal and precious and terrifying all at once. "You're brooding again." Mira's voice came from beside her. The healer had become more than advisor, she'd become the grandmother figure Sera had never had. "That's the 3rd time today I've caught you staring into the distance with that worried expression." Sera smiled despite herself. "I'm not brooding. I'm contemplating." Semantics. Mira moved to stand beside her, following her gaze to where young Thomas, fully healed and thriving, demonstrated a perfect shift for the younger cubs. "You're worried about whether you'll be a good mother, whether you can balance Luna duties with raising a pup, whether the child will inherit your dormant wolf complications. Are you a mind reader now in addition to being a healer?" Sera asked, though Mira had hit every concern perfectly. "I'm old and observant," Mira replied with a gentle smile. "And I'm telling you what I told you 6 months ago. Trust yourself. Trust your mate. Trust that the goddess doesn't make mistakes." Before Sera could respond, a familiar warmth flooded through the mate bond. Kale was approaching, his presence in her mind as natural now as breathing. She'd learned to manage the pack bonds over the past months, to shield when necessary, and open when appropriate. The constant connection to hundreds of wolves had become comfortable, even cherishing. But Kale's bond was different, stronger, deeper, a golden thread that connected them so thoroughly she sometimes couldn't tell where she ended, and he began. He emerged from the tree line in wolf form, massive and beautiful with his midnight fur and silver markings. The young wolves immediately stopped their training to bow their heads in respect to their Alpha King. But Kale's golden eyes were only for Sera as he shifted back to human form, pulling on the clothes he'd left tied to his leg. "You didn't tell me you were going for a run," Sera said as he approached, though there was no accusation in her tone. "Just observation. Needed to clear my head," he admitted, pulling her into his arms. His nose went immediately to her neck, breathing in her scent, checking that she was well. It was instinct now, the protective nature of an alpha with his pregnant mate. Council meeting ran long. Disputes over border territory with the eastern packs. "Anything serious?" "Nothing I can't handle." His hand moved to her belly, resting there with infinite gentleness. "How's our little one today? Still making me nauseous in the mornings," Sera replied, covering his hand with hers. "But otherwise perfect. Mira says everything is progressing normally." "Better than normally," Mira corrected, moving to give them privacy. "That pup is strong already. I can feel it. Going to be powerful, that one." After Mira departed, Kale led Sera away from the training grounds to their favorite spot, a small clearing deep in the forest where moonflowers grew wild and the stream created natural music with its flow over smooth stones. "You're worried about something," Sera observed, reading the tension in his shoulders despite his attempt to hide it. "What happened in the council meeting?" Kale sighed, pulling her down to sit beside him on the moss-covered bank. "The prophecy is spreading." Other territories are hearing about the exiled queen, about your healing powers, about the old magic manifesting. Some are curious, some are hopeful. He paused. Some are afraid. Afraid of me? Sera's hand unconsciously went to her belly again, protective. Afraid of change, Kale corrected. You represent the end of the old ways, the rigid hierarchies, the cruel traditions, the divisions between strong and weak. Some alphas see that as progress. Others see it as threat to their authority. Sera had known this was coming. Elder Thea had warned that fulfilling prophecy meant disrupting status quo, but knowing it intellectually and facing it practically were different things. What do they want? She asked quietly. Some want to meet you, to see if the stories are true. Others are demanding proof of the prophecy's validity. And a few, his jaw tightened, a few are making noises about challenging our authority, claiming that, if I can break tradition by accepting a mate with dormant wolf, then other traditions become negotiable too. They're not wrong, Sera pointed out. We are disrupting tradition. Isn't that the point? Yes, but disruption can be controlled, or it can be chaos. Kale's golden eyes met hers. The Council of Alphas is calling for a great gathering in 3 months. All territories, all alphas, all lunas. They want you to demonstrate your abilities publicly. Prove that you're what the prophecy claims. Sera's stomach twisted with more than morning sickness. Another test. The last one, Kale promised, pulling her against his chest. After this, no one will question your place, your power, your right to be Luna and to guide our kind into new era. And if I fail, you won't, he said with absolute certainty. But even if something goes wrong, even if the demonstration doesn't work perfectly, you're still my mate, still my queen, still the most important person in my entire world. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the stream and the forest sounds around them. Sera let herself sink into the mate bond, feeling Kale's steady presence, his unwavering support. I've been working on something, she said after a while. With Elder Thea and Mira, a way to share healing through pack bonds, to channel power through the Luna connection, so that injuries anywhere in the territory can be treated remotely. Kale pulled back to look at her, amazement clear on his face. That's Sera. That's incredible. That kind of ability hasn't been seen in centuries. It's not perfected yet, she warned, and it's exhausting. But imagine no wolf dying from wounds because help couldn't reach them in time. No pup suffering because their pack couldn't afford a trained healer. You want to democratize healing, Kale realized. Make it accessible to everyone regardless of status or wealth. Isn't that what the prophecy means? Sera asked. Healing what was broken. The broken isn't just individuals, it's the entire system that decides some wolves are worth saving and others aren't. Kale's expression had gone soft with wonder and love. How did I get so lucky? He murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. To find a mate who's not just powerful, but wise. Not just beautiful, but compassionate. Not just my equal, but sometimes my better. Flatterer, Sera accused, but she was smiling. Truth-teller, he corrected. He stood, pulling her up with him. Come. I want to show you something. He led her deeper into the forest, to a section she'd never explored. The trees here were ancient, their trunks massive, their branches forming cathedral-like canopy overhead. And in the center of a natural clearing stood a structure that made Sera gasp. It was a temple, small but exquisitely crafted, made of white stone that seemed to glow in the dappled sunlight. Carvings of wolves and moons covered every surface, and at its heart stood an altar where moonflowers grew in impossible abundance. I had it built for you, Kale said softly. A place to connect with the goddess, to practice your healing, to train others in the old magic. Your own sacred space. Tears blurred Sera's vision. Kale, this is not enough, he interrupted. Will never be enough to repay what you've given me, but it's a start. He cupped her face gently. You whispered to the moon in your darkest hour, and she sent you to me. This temple is my thank you to her, for answering both our prayers. Sera threw her arms around him, holding tight as emotion overwhelmed her. 6 months ago she'd been dying alone in the thornwood, convinced she was worthless. Now she stood in a temple built in her honor, carrying the pup of the most powerful alpha in the realm, preparing to change the world. I love you, she whispered against his chest. So much it scares me sometimes. I love you too, little mate. My exiled queen. My Sera. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. Whatever comes the great gathering, the challenges, the changes ahead, we face it together. Always together. Always, she agreed. As the sun set and the full moon began to rise, Sera felt her wolf stir fully present now, powerful and content. The emptiness that had haunted her for 22 years was gone, filled with pack bonds and mate connection and the growing life inside her. She thought of that desperate girl in the thornwood, broken and bleeding, whispering prayers to an uncaring moon, and she wished she could tell her, "Hold on, just a little longer. Your Alpha King is coming. Your future is waiting. Your true self is about to emerge. You are not a mistake. You are not defective. You are exactly who you were always meant to be." The exiled Omega had whispered to the moon and found her home. The prophesied queen had risen from exile to transform a kingdom. But most importantly, Sera had learned the greatest truth of all, that belonging isn't given, it's claimed. That worth isn't determined by others, it's recognized from within. That sometimes being cast out is the first step toward finding where you truly belong. She was home. She was loved. She was enough. And her story, their story, was just beginning. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.